The Galactic Federation is mentoring humanity not to manifest nightmares in our 5D galaxy.
You are listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Welcome to my latest Exopolitics commentary, which is being released on July 31 on my website, exopolitics.org, and YouTube and Rumble. It will be released a day earlier on Patreon for those that are subscribers to Patreon, and you'll be seeing the video version of this, but the article version will be released on July 31st at 7:15 a.m. East Coast time in the US. So what this commentary is focused on is the material that emanates from Swaruu. So what I'm going to do is read the article version that is being released on exopolitics.org along with some additional commentary as I go along, and I will play the relevant video clips so that you can follow what is being said. The Swaruu material began in 2017/2018. First, it was a Spanish version in 2017, and 2018 is when the English website was created. When two Spain-based UFO researchers, Robert and Gosia, began receiving messages from a young Taygetan female extraterrestrial called Swaruu, who allegedly took up residence in an Andromedan mothership to relay electronic messages to Earth. The messages were received via the internet and contained original information on a range of topics, including the Galactic Federation of Worlds. Swaruu was soon joined by other Taygetans who were associated with the Swaruu family. Now, as far as I can tell, the Swaruu family obviously involves quite a number of individuals. Now, two of them became queens. I have learned that it is not correct to refer to them as a royal family. And I guess that's the way in which queens are chosen on Taygeta. I guess it's a system which is not done through family bloodlines. There's some other way that these royals are chosen, which I believe is some kind of vote, a democratic vote. So let me continue my article. They shared that regressive extraterrestrial races had largely left our solar system and the Earth was being managed by the Galactic Federation. However, Swaruu and her compatriots disagreed with the Galactic Federation leadership over how the Earth was being managed, and when the population would be told the truth about extraterrestrial life and allowed to join the greater galactic community. Crucially, the Swaruu material information preceded that of Elena Danaan and Megan Rose, who both came on the scene in early to mid-2021. Elena was first, and then she was followed a few months later by Megan, and Elena endorsed Megan Rose as also being in touch with the Federation, and in fact in touch with one of the individuals that Elena Danaan says rescued her when she was 9 years old, and that was Valnek. And they began sharing detailed information on the Galactic Federation of Worlds. But that was in 2021. Consequently, what Swaruu and her fellow Taygetans shared about the organization, goals, and functions of the Galactic Federation is original and independent material that is very relevant to understanding the current situation on Earth and what to expect in the future. What follows is my analysis of two early communications between Gosia and Swaruu and other Taygetans on the topic of the Galactic Federation. The first communication was released on September 29, 2018, and focused on the Prime Directive, which Swaruu / Gosia describes as, quote, the primordial law that all different extraterrestrial races in the galaxy abide by, end quote. The Prime Directive contains 10 principles guiding the actions and goals of all alien civilizations, particularly those belonging to the Galactic Federation, which is explicitly mentioned. What is noteworthy is that almost 3 years after Swaruu released the Prime Directive governing all races, including the Galactic Federation, Danan would release the same 10 principles in a slightly different order and with minor textual modifications on September 6, 2021. This was done by Danan without attribution or acknowledgement of the earlier Swaruu version. Danan appropriated and repackaged Swaruu's Prime Directive as something developed and strictly followed by the Galactic Federation of Worlds, which had codified primordial law, also known as galactic natural law, followed by all races. Why Danan did all this and the connection to the Prime Directive in the fictional Star Trek series created by Gene Roddenberry will be the subject of a future Exopolitics commentary. What follows is the original Prime Directive released by Swaruu to Gosia and Robert in 2018, which is the first insight into the goals and activities of the Galactic Federation and other races interacting with humanity. So I'm going to play the relevant extract from the video that was released in 2018, where Gosia is reading verbatim the Galactic Federation's Prime Directive.
The Prime Directive is to serve as a moral, ethical, legal template and guide. The Prime Directive is immediately applicable to all cultures in any planet that have not yet achieved interstellar travel capacity and has not established an organized continuous relationship with an evolved external interstellar culture. Nothing within these articles of the Federation shall authorize Federation personnel to intervene in matters which are essentially of the domestic, local, or private jurisdiction of any planetary culture or social system, or shall require the members to submit such matters to settlement under any articles of the Federation. As the right of each sentient species to live in accordance with its natural and biological cultural evolution is considered sacred. No Federation members or personnel may interfere with the normal, autonomous and healthy development of alien life, society, and culture. Such interference includes introducing superior knowledge, strength, or technology to a planet or world whose neighbors and society is incapable of handling such advantages wisely, judged on their present level of spiritual, moral, and technological evolutionary level. Federation personnel may not violate this Prime Directive unless they are acting to right an earlier violation or an accidental contamination of said culture. This directive takes precedence over any and all other considerations and carries with it the highest moral obligation. The Federation cannot expose an evolving species to technology that the species has not yet discovered or is currently capable of developing and using. Not permitted to make contact with or interfere with lesser evolved races unless they are threatened by an outside source. In that case, it is the moral obligation of Federation personnel to evaluate the situation to determine a suitable course of action. Sharing and seeding of technology above the lesser evolved race evolutionary capability of understanding is prohibited or taken to the necessary minimum. spiritual, and moral knowledge should also be restricted to a bare and necessary minimum, only using communication methods and devices at the current level of understanding of the lesser evolved race.
So that is the prime directive of the Galactic Federation that Gosia and Robert released to the English and Spanish speaking audiences in 2018. And in my article, I have it also released in text version, so you can read all 10 principles that make up this prime directive. And that 3 years later, Elena Danaan took those 10 principles and repackaged them, used them virtually verbatim, and released them as the Galactic Federation of Worlds Prime Directive without any acknowledgement or attribution to the Swaruu version, which was the original and came 3 years earlier. So that's quite a puzzle why she did that, and I would look forward to learning more about that, but I will be discussing that in a future commentary. The first key takeaway from the Federation's Prime Directive is the first principle that non-intervention only applies when a planet such as Earth has not achieved interstellar travel and has not achieved continuous relations with an external interstellar culture. That means that once Nazi Germany and its breakaway Antarctica faction had reached agreements with Draco reptilians that led to the construction of an interstellar fleet, the Federation was permitted by the Prime Directive to intervene in Earth affairs. The second key takeaway is the final principle that Federation members can only communicate with the residents of a planetary civilization using the available technologies of that civilization. This means that electronic communication via the internet is available to Federation members to communicate with Earth residents, which is how Swaruu chose to communicate with Robert and Gosia since 2017. Now, there was an elderly French lady that Swaruu began communicating with earlier. I believe it was in 2008, but that never got anywhere. But that French lady did connect Robert and Gosia with Swaruu when they met in 2017 at a World Ufology Congress in Montserrat, Barcelona, Spain, which coincidentally I was there as well at that time and actually got to meet Gosia and Robert. Don't know if I met this French lady, don't know if she approached me at all about this. Many people approached me at that time to discuss things, so I just don't recall, but I find it very interesting that I was there at that conference when the Swaruu material really began to be disseminated to researchers who would then make it known throughout the world. The second communication regarding the Galactic Federation was released on April 25, 2020. The communication involves Swaruu and several other Taygetans working with her. It's again worth emphasizing that this was before Danaan and Rose had appeared on the scene in early to mid-2021. And it gives us an undistorted glimpse into the operations of the Galactic Federation from the Swaruu perspective. According to Swaruu, the Galactic Federation learned a long time ago that ethics rather than military force was the way to defeat regressive races in a galaxy which is primarily fifth density or 5D in consciousness, as distinct to third density or 3D Earth. The way Swaruu describes the difference between 5D and 3D is that it's much harder to manifest one's intentions, dreams, or subconscious nightmares in 3D as opposed to 5D. On 3D planets such as Earth, regressive ET races appear because collectively humanity is calling them in due to their subconscious fears and nightmares. In 5D, most civilizations have learned how to deal with and filter out collective nightmares, which could cause chaos in the galaxy, which is primarily peaceful. Now, just to comment on that, just to clarify, in a 5D galaxy or universe, what one intends or dreams or fears, nightmares and so forth, it's much easier to manifest that. In other words, the power of manifestation is much quicker and more powerful as you go higher up the density scale. So 5D, it's very easy to manifest things, and 6D, 7D, it obviously gets easier and easier to manifest your thoughts and your dreams or your nightmares. So that makes it very important for civilizations that operate in a 5D space to be able to deal with their emotions and their subconscious fears and unresolved issues. Because if they don't, they will manifest around them, and they know that. Now, in 3D worlds such as ours, it's much harder to manifest. I mean, and people teach classes on how to manifest. I remember watching or reading a book by Greg Braden called The Isaiah Effect, which is all about the power of manifestation. But you actually have to go to a lot of effort. You have to, for example, as Greg Braden described it, you have to imagine yourself celebrating what it is you are intending to manifest. So if, for example, you're a shaman and you want to create rain, what you do is you go out and you start dancing, and you're visualizing that you're dancing in the rain. And so you're a shaman and you get others to do that with you. You're dancing in the rain, celebrating the rain, even though there's been a record drought. And that's how you break the drought. But it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. In 5D, that would be almost instantaneous. So it makes sense that civilizations in a 5D galaxy would be very, very vulnerable to civilizations that are just coming up out of 3D who have not yet resolved their underlying collective issues, traumas, nightmares, and so forth. Okay, so this is how Swaruu explains the situation. So I'm going to play a relevant section from the video that Swaruu or Gosia released of Swaruu.
Yes. The Federation was formed a long time ago to fight evil, the regressive races, but they could never subdue them with weapons. Today they know that the solution is with ethics, with consciousness and wisdom. Even today, there are some nightmares in 5D, but it is a minor problem and they are faced in the same way. But humans as a race are young and inexperienced, still within the idea that they live in a deterministic, causal world where things happen to them, not that they make things happen to them. They must learn as the other interstellar races have, with strong experiences that promote growth, not with schools where they see slides. That way, they don't learn, but they must learn to control their nightmares in a controlled environment so that they don't end up destroying themselves. That controlled environment is Earth.
Well, that's very important to understand that we live in a controlled environment. The situation described here by Swaruu is very similar to what was depicted in the 1956 movie Forbidden Planet. There, future humans stumble upon a planet which was once inhabited by an ancient civilization that had destroyed itself due to it developing advanced technologies that would actualize people's thoughts. What the civilization didn't realize is that they collectively had not dealt with their nightmares, which operated at a subconscious level, thereby leading to the creation of powerful invisible monsters that destroyed their ancient civilization. So what I'm going to play here is a short clip from Forbidden Planet. I'm not going to have the sound because I don't want to have a copyright issue here. But what you see is this spacecraft that comes from the future Earth, and it arrives on this planet, and they start encountering these invisible monsters. And as the movie plays out, it's learned that that invisible monster is being created from the subconscious mind of a scientist who stumbled upon the ancient technologies, or what we might call builder race technologies, the ancient technologies that were left behind by that long extinct civilization. So this scene just shows one of these invisible monsters and how the most advanced space weapons, lasers and so forth, possessed by these future humans were really useless against this monster. You'll kind of like see this scene here where the monster appears and they are shooting at it. Here we go. All right, so they're now shooting at this invisible monster, and you can just see it. There it is. So this monster is being created from the subconscious mind of a scientist who in this movie at that time was hooked up to a machine, and the scientist didn't know that this was happening. But the machine was activating allowing him to manifest, essentially. And so he was having a dream or a nightmare, and this nightmare involved this monster going out there and killing people and so forth. So this movie, The Forbidden Planet, is really, I think, a very good movie for understanding the concept that the Swaruu material is trying to convey, that until a civilization has learned how to master its subconscious fears and nightmares, it would be a menace to the wider galactic society if that primitive civilization was allowed to go out there and interact. So here you see the scientist who's waking up. He's just woken up now. He becomes conscious, and so the monster disappears. It's a product of his subconscious. So I highly recommended a movie, Forbidden Planet. Swaruu shared more info on how the Federation learned to control regressive ETs, which would appear as a result of collective nightmares. So I'll play this little clip as well.
Was created to control regressives, but they understood in the most difficult way that the only way to control them is with mind and consciousness, not with weapons. I don't see regressive ships here, only those that come from Earth.
Well, that's a very, very important statement right there, that the extraterrestrials, or the Federation, learned that the way in which you control regressive ETs is to control them with mind and consciousness, not weapons. This passage reveals why the Federation had been created and how they learned to use mind and consciousness rather than weapons to defeat regressive ETs. This stands in stark contrast to much later information from Danan that the Galactic Federation has formed a large interstellar alliance to militarily defeat the Draco-Reptilian Empire and has invaded their home world. From the Swaruu perspective, Danan's information is not how the Federation conducts conflict resolution at a galactic level, and is therefore a likely product of her imagination. This is not a great surprise given Danan's appropriation and repackaging of earlier Swaruu material, such as the Prime Directives. So I'm very skeptical. I've been skeptical for some time that what Leonard Danan was describing in terms of the Galactic Federation assembling a huge alliance involving the Anak Empire and the spider beings to militarily defeat the Draconian Empire and to invade their home world. But now, having familiarized myself a little with the Swaruu material and understanding that how these civilizations operate at the fifth density level, it's become pretty clear to me that this is not at all how the Federation operates. Going out there and establishing a kind of military solution to galactic problems is not how the Federation operates. It's doing it from the level of consciousness and mind, and that makes a lot more sense to me. Swaruu goes on to describe how collective nightmares were brought to Earth by Lyran refugees who had escaped the destructive wars with Draco reptilians that had engulfed their worlds. So this is important to understand that these collective nightmares that really are why humanity continues to remain at a 3D level were initially brought to Earth by Lyran refugees. So let's listen to what Swaruu has to say about these Lyran refugees.
That come from Earth. And they were not created later. Those nightmares were already created because the Lyrians came to Earth fleeing from their own nightmares that followed them to Earth. They carry them with them because they are their own nightmares. They cannot escape their own reflection. Humans are ETs, but it is human creation because it happened on Earth, and they were compatible with those events because they reflect what they are like inside. That is what Earth is for, from another point of view. It is a school so that all ET races, whatever they are, learn to resolve their differences and learn to manifest beautiful things.
Okay, so that's the critical idea right there, that all ET races learn to resolve their differences and to manifest beautiful things. This then is the crux of what the Federation intends to do then from the Swaruu perspective. The goal is that humanity needs to learn how to collectively manifest beautiful things rather than nightmares before they are allowed to leave our 3D Earth and solar system, before entering 5D interstellar space. Swaruu describes in more detail why humanity is forced to live in an artificially created 3D environment first created by Lyran refugees.
Aneka. Despite that, humans are given everything, all the support, the resources, the wisdom. But the nightmares are made by themselves for not knowing how to cooperate with each other. As long as they are like this and behave like this, they will not be able to be part of interstellar society for the simple fact that they would manifest nightmares and chaos here in 5D and faster than there. So that's why the artificial 3D.
All right, so, and that's what I explained earlier, that in 5D, civilizations can manifest things far more easily and quickly. And if you haven't resolved your unresolved traumas, nightmares, and so forth, then you don't want to be in a 5D space. Otherwise, it would be like Forbidden Planet and that Scientist, where you would manifest these invisible, terrifying creatures because you've got unresolved issues. As to who created the artificial 3D on Earth, the answer is the ruling bloodline families who work with regressive extraterrestrial races to harvest the human population as a biological resource. This 3D matrix, according to David Icke, was projected from Earth's moon and Saturn. And so Saturn is often mentioned as an Anunnaki base for hundreds of thousands of years. And so it would appear then that since at least the arrival of the Anunnaki in our solar system 300,000 years ago, that they have had a hand in the projection of this 3D matrix, according to David Icke. So let me continue. And extended throughout our solar systems. As long as humans remained a 3D matrix society dominated by collective nightmares encouraged by global elites and regressive extraterrestrials, humanity would be cut off from 5D intergalactic society that comprised mostly peaceful races that manifested beautiful civilization. So this is really the critical point here, that humanity for thousands of years, we've been living in this 3D matrix society, constant wars, constant famine, constant poverty, intolerance, fanaticism, all the things that make up this kind of collective nightmare. And this has been kind of like encouraged by global elites and regressive extraterrestrials, because they know that if we were to resolve these things and come up with peaceful, harmonious societies, then that 5D intergalactic society would begin arriving, and they would begin communicating with and even encouraging the spread of these kind of peaceful societies. And so they wanted to prevent that. And so the most effective way to do it was to keep us in this 3D matrix where we would constantly recycle war, poverty, famine, intolerance, fanaticism, and so forth. And that's been going on for hundreds of thousands of years. Next, Swaruu drops a bombshell. The extraterrestrials who currently maintain the artificial third density environment in which we live are none other than the evolved races that make up the Galactic Federation. So let me play this for you.
Swaruu, you wouldn't understand, for example, that your beloved Sirians, Andromedans, Arcturians, and Pleiadians are the hidden controllers of humanity. And that is the truth. But people still believe that things are black and white, and that they are on Earth as victims. And also, not that they are bad, I insist a lot, the Federation. It's just that they think like their races think. They are not human. Do not expect them to have the same principles and points of view. Evil is not something definite. It is something relative to the interests of each person or each group. So even those positive races can appear to be bad from one point of view or another.
Okay, so that is quite a bombshell right there, that the Galactic Federation and these evolved extraterrestrial races that many people claim to have communicated with or had contact with, the Sirians, the Andromedans, Arcturians, pardon me, the Pleiadians are the hidden controllers of humanity. So the Galactic Federation are the hidden controllers of humanity, according to Swaruu. This is consistent with information first disseminated by Swaruu that regressive extraterrestrials had been driven off Earth and our solar system. So it makes sense. If regressive extraterrestrials, Anunnaki, Draco reptilians, Orion Greys have established this repressive 3D matrix system for hundreds of thousands of years, and they were driven off Earth and our solar system recently, I mean, several decades ago, then it makes sense that the Galactic Federation, who drove off the regressive races have kept the 3D matrix system going for reasons that will soon be explained. It also this idea that the Galactic Federation and positive ETs are now in control of the 3D matrix system on Earth also matches with information from General Haim Eshed, the father of Israel's spy satellite program, that the Galactic Federation had denied a request from President Trump for disclosure, saying humanity was still not ready. So you think about that. So this happened in December 2020, that Haim Eshed gave an interview concerning his recently released book, and he said that the Galactic Federation had nixed a proposal from President Trump to disclose their existence, and the Galactics saying humanity wasn't ready yet. I mean, to me, that's powerful corroboration for the Swaruu material, saying right now the hidden controllers, or those managing the 3D matrix system that we live in, is the Galactic Federation. Now there's nuances there, because that doesn't mean that the Galactic Federation is allowing the minions of the royal families, of the regressive ETs, to just do what they want. There's nuances here, so I will explain that now. Now, how does the information that the Federation are humanity's hidden controllers reconcile with the prime directive that allegedly governs the Federation's activities with humanity? The prime directive promotes non-interference in the evolution of a species that has not yet achieved interstellar travel capabilities. The problem here is that while most of humanity, 99.9%, is far from being an interstellar species, secret space programs were developed in the World War II era by Nazi Germany and later by the US and the Soviet Union. This would have given the Federation the authority to intervene and maintain the 3D matrix on humanity, first established by the ruling bloodline families and regressive extraterrestrials. So the 3D matrix goes on, even though the regressives have been driven off Earth and off our solar system in a major way. That doesn't mean that all negative extraterrestrials are gone, but the majority and their fleets are gone. But the Galactic Federation is now in overall control of the 3D matrix, but they're allowing it to continue, and for reasons that will shortly be explained by Swaruu, and we can discuss that. Swaruu next goes on to describe what all this means for the Federation from an ethical perspective.
So these positive races just are. They do what they think is best with the best data they have, like everyone else. But mistakes are made, and antagonistic to others they can be too. They only give the best they have with the best intentions, even if it goes wrong later. But they are the hidden controllers of humanity. You are no longer fighting against the negative alliance. The Federation is a conglomerate of colossal dimensions. No one messes with the Federation anymore.
All right, so there you have a kind of like summation of the situation that we find ourselves in, which is that the Federation is currently controlling the situation on Earth. So there we have it. The Galactic Federation is currently in control of Earth and is working directly with ruling bloodline families and political leaders to help humanity learn to expunge its collective nightmares and learn to manifest a beautiful future. Okay, so this is something that's going to be very challenging for a lot of people to wrap their mind around. So if the Galactic Federation is currently in charge of the Earth and of the 3D matrix, why do they allow the ruling bloodline families, the deep state, compromised officials to continue to operate? Well, they are wanting humanity to learn to expunge its collective nightmares and learn to manifest a beautiful future. So if the way I see it, if the Galactic Federation just kind of like openly intervened and said, hey, we're here to help you, you have these ruling bloodline families, the Soros family, the Rothschild family, the Rockefellers, and so forth, and they're the hidden controllers behind the scenes who compromise and manipulate all your compromised politicians and political leaders and so forth, and we're just going to remove them from you. And it's like, okay, yay, everyone's happy. But the thing is, we have not learned ourselves how to identify and remove from power such powerful beings who use the mass media and use other control techniques to manipulate and deceive us. We haven't learned that lesson. And so if now we're allowed to go out into 5D reality because we haven't learned that real lesson, and now there are these starships carrying human colonizers to Alpha Centauri, Pleiades, and so forth, a lot of those humans that are going there, they haven't learned how to expunge their collective nightmares. So they're just going to go there, and all of a sudden they're just going to do the same thing. So this is why the Galactic Federation is permitting these bloodline families and political leaders to continue to do what they're doing, but in a very rigid way, or in a way where they are highly controlled. And this kind of brings to mind what happened with the Biden administration after Biden had won the 2020 election and had been inaugurated on January 2021. And a lot of people talked about this. They said, well, if you look at Obama and Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, and other leading deep state figures at the time, they clearly weren't celebrating. I mean, this was not a time for celebration, the inauguration of Biden. What the heck was going on? Well, and there are many people who have been saying since that time that in fact that this was a kind of like a white hat operation where the deep state would be allowed to establish control over the presidency, but it would be an illusion. Behind the scenes, the white hats ruled over things. They pulled the strings from behind the scenes, and that President Trump remained president, even though he was now a kind of like an ex-president officially, according to the So this is kind of echoing what the Galactic Federation has been doing on Earth with the deep state, with the ruling bloodline families. It's like, okay, you're going to continue to remain in power, but we're going to get you to do things, in such a stupid, clumsy, ineffectual way that essentially you're going to wake people up with your repressive policies. And, that's what happened during the Biden administration. A lot of people got woken up concerning a whole range of issues during the Biden administration. And this seems to be the strategy, not just of the White Hats, of the Earth Alliance, but also it's a policy of the Galactic Federation that's working closely with the Earth Alliance. So this is something that I think is very, very important to keep in mind. So Swaruu goes on to say,
"They leave humans alone being responsible. It is to create experiences that form collective ethics, collective empathy, the base of all civilization. They cannot be interstellar with the mindset they have today. As long as they don't overcome their problems, as long as they don't understand how to resolve their differences, they can't be interstellar. Human beings in their current state are not allowed to explore the solar system because they would interfere, for example, in the formation and in the right of the race that is in Europe, which is a variant of the Charistus race of Jupiter."
Okay, so what is
Jupiter.
being referred to here is, in fact, that there's some civilization on the moon Europa that is in orbit around Jupiter, and that that humanity is supposed to not interfere with that. And that's very, very interesting when you think of Arthur C. Clarke and his novel and the eventual movie 2001, where after there's this kind of like disclosure of extraterrestrial life in our solar system, that the extraterrestrials tell humanity, all the planets, all the planets are ours to explore, but leave Europa alone. So that's very interesting, and I have to say that JP, who I've been working with since 2008, he was taken to Europa by these Nordic extraterrestrials, and he saw an advanced civilization there and Nordics there in the ocean under the icy surface, and that it was quite a large civilization. Now, here we go. There have been dozens of individuals who describe secret space programs such as the German Dark Fleet and the US Navy's Solar Warden that operates extensively throughout our solar system and even in interstellar space. While these are relatively small operations that apparently do travel throughout the solar system and perhaps beyond, the Swaruu material is suggesting that this is not going to be allowed for the bulk of the human population until we learn to collectively manifest beautiful things rather than nightmares. So it seems that because there are all these secret space program insiders who have come forward talking about, well, I served with the Dark Fleet and they took me out there and I was part of these aggressive fleets that attacked human worlds and so forth, or others saying that, yeah, we went out there and we were part of a kind of solar warden fleet and we interacted with positive extraterrestrials out there, that those being very small operations were allowed, but that for the bulk of humanity, the 99.9% of humanity that doesn't know about secret space programs and so forth, we're not going to be allowed to go into interstellar space until we learn to control our nightmares and learn to manifest beautiful things. So now Swaruu describes where humanity stands today.
Federation races cannot solve their problems for humans because they will not have any learning and will repeat the same mistakes again. Yes, what Naishara says is very important. Its true role on Earth. It is not that of tyrants. It is not of the controllers who exploit people cruelly. It is a role of patient mentors, teachers.
All right, so here we have the idea of teachers, mentors. So currently, the Federation is acting as mentors to humanity. This matches what Alex Collier has long said about the Andromedans, which he says are active members of the Federation who are mentoring humanity. So now we have more of an idea that everything that is happening to us or being allowed to happen to us is part of this mentoring process where we have to kind of grow up. It's almost like going through boot camp, if you like, and you have a drill sergeant who is your mentor, who may appear to be quite, a lot of tough love there, right? But at the end of the day, you come out as a trained soldier. So apparently something like that is happening with humanity and the Galactic Federation who is mentoring us. So let's continue what Swaruu has to tell us.
The Federation does not cooperate with any regressive reptiles. As I said before, even alpha dracos are positive. The Federation is the one who controls what happens on Earth. It regulates, and they are human mentors. And the reptiles of before have been manifested by multiple races of Earth, but long ago. From there, the concept is filtered to Earth.
Okay, so this is a very, very significant passage right there. Now, it says that, as I said before, that alpha draconians are positive. Now, what in the world does that mean? Now, the Federation does not cooperate with any regressive reptiles. So what they're talking about there are 3D reptilians, those that operate in who were operating in the 3D matrix, doing all the things that have been described by secret space program witnesses. And I've been interviewing quite a few people and over the years, and they've described these horrible things that the reptilians are doing who are working with the Dark Fleet, and they describe them sometimes as these Draco reptilians. Well, these are reptilians operating in the 3D space in which we are, and in this 3D space, the reptilians are really kind of playing their role as monsters, because that mirrors how humanity is towards one another and to the animals. But that at a 5D level, and here we're talking about the galaxy proper, the Alpha Draconians understand about the importance of not manifesting your nightmares, and that there are actually positive Alpha Draconian factions. Now, the relationship between these Alpha Draconians in the 5th density, who have both positive and negative factions, and how that relates to the 3D Alpha Draconians and regressive reptiles, I mean, that's worth a lot more study. But the idea is that the Federation is not cooperating with these regressive reptilians to terrorize the Earth, that the mentoring process by the Galactic Federation is really to help us understand how to deal with these regressive races if they are encountered at any point. This mentoring doesn't involve cooperation with regressive groups, but only with positive factions, and that includes a faction of the infamous Alpha Draconians. The next point helps clarify who the Federation is working with in their control of Earth. So let me play this clip.
Okay, so to clarify, they don't work with reptiles, not with Illuminati, not with Satanists, or anything like that. No, that is human creation. It has occurred on Earth. Those are not the top of the pyramid. The Federation is not bad, but it is those who from the top control everything. They are the top of the pyramid.
All right, so there you have some more important information that when it comes to ruling bloodline families or the Illuminati, Satanists, the deep state, that the Federation is not cooperating with these beings, with these groups, that they are, in fact, let's just say, they are dealing with them in a way that helps the rest of humanity wake up. As I gave the example of the Biden administration, that after it, let's just say, the 2020 election was not fair and transparent in the way it was conducted, but nevertheless, the Biden administration won, getting millions of more votes than Obama did. Fancy that. How did Joe Biden get millions of more votes than Barack Obama? Wow, that's a story right there. Now, but the Federation is not cooperating with these dark groups, but is controlling them or making them act and do things in a way that leads to humanity waking up. As I gave the example before, that they are kind of like penning them in, making them do things in a way that leads to the rest of the population waking up. And of course, the jab, and that led to a lot of people waking up. The way that was all handled, a lot of people have been woken up about the corruption at the highest levels, especially the way in which the pharmaceutical industry is run, and all those things that get put into people and into babies and all of that. That people are asking questions now, which is a good thing. So, but this passage points out that these ruling bloodline families, the deep state, are not at the top of the pyramid. They are not the most powerful forces on Earth right now. That the Federation is at the apex. That previously the apex were the regressive 3D reptilians and Orion Greys, but now they've been kind of driven off, and so the Galactic Federation has stepped in and is at the top of the pyramid according to the Swaruu material. So with the Federation at the top of the current control system or pyramid of Earth, Swaruu describes how it modulates behavior so as humanity learns to control its collective nightmares. So let's listen to this other clip.
The Federation does not control the way you think. The Federation only modulates that the creations of the humans, aka Illuminati and Cabal, do not end up destroying the Earth, while the humans learn not to manifest these things for themselves. Humans need the stimulation that comes from being in trouble, the stimulus to respond and solve their own creations. Only with the contrast of what they do not want, they will be able to appreciate what they do want for themselves.
Okay, so some very important things to consider here. Again, it's all about dealing with our own creations and understanding what it is that we collectively want as opposed to what we collectively don't want. Next, Gosia asks the Federation asks about the Federation allowing false flag event and what it does to mitigate excesses by the bloodline ruling families and the deep state. So if the Federation is at the top of the apex of the pyramid, the power structures really on Earth, and the Illuminati, the deep state, are kind of below that, but they're allowed to continue to operate, but in a much circumscribed way, then what is the Federation doing to kind of like make sure that the deep state doesn't go overboard and create a world war or some kind of global pandemic that wipes out 90% of the population or something like that? Okay, so let's listen to what Gosia says that the Federation is doing here.
No, the Federation will not orchestrate a false flag against the people, but it would see and permit it to continue due to the free will of the people who one way or another want to have such an experience. But when something becomes too much and unacceptable for the Federation, like child abuse and abductions for satanic purposes, then the Federation will step in. First, by seeing that human institutions do their job solving the problem. And if, like in this very case, the human institutions prove themselves incapable of solving the problem, then the Federation will step in, sending boots on the ground forces to stop whatever is not right, always leaving the credit to human institutions. So even when a hundreds of thousands child dumb rescue is 99% Antarian military for the Federation, the credit will go to the 1% US Navy SEALs who participated in the operation.
Okay, so there's a couple of things here that I want to really emphasize in. Well, first of all, that the Federation itself doesn't conduct false flag events, but it will permit the deep state and the ruling bloodline families to do a false flag event due to the population buying into it in some way. That if the population accepts it, that false flag event, then it will allow it. And the second thing here is that despite that, what the Federation does when things get excessive, such as what's happening in deep underground military bases and children that are being held there and being abused or being cloned and terrible things happening to them, that there are rescues of these children, but that often the Federation will have its people, its military wing, playing a big role in these rescues. So the Antarian military, so the Antarian star system, which is Antares is this massive red giant, and there are civilizations from that solar system, and they are a very powerful military force that they go in there, and so they dominate the personnel actually going into these bases and rescuing these children from all kinds of regressive ETs and corrupt elites and minions of the deep state or ruling bloodline families, and that there'll be a kind of sometimes a token presence, or there will always be a token presence of an indigenous military force such as Navy SEALs or Army Delta Code. Now, Gene Decode and other sources claim that there have been joint operations between Earth and extraterrestrial special forces to raid the DUMBs. So I've interviewed Gene Decode several times, and one of our interviews we talk about how there have been these rescues of captive children, and he talks about millions of children being held in captivity and of course being tortured and being used for all sorts of things, and how there are these raids by special forces involving humanity, white hats, and friendly off-world forces. So this is corroboration for what Swaruu was saying here. According to Swaruu, these operations comprise mostly extraterrestrial military forces and a token Earth force. Support for this comes from Jean-Charles Moyen and Melanie Charret, who described their involvement in extraterrestrial rescue operations of children held captive on Earth and elsewhere in our solar system. So both Jean-Charles and Melanie have talked about being involved in these extraterrestrial rescues of captive children. And we know that this is something that they have talked about in various interviews, and that this is going on. This is happening. And so that corroborates, again, what Swaruu has revealed. The following passage explains why the Federation has refused the Taygetans' assistance, which it is a question, a legitimate question. If the Taygetans are communicating with humanity, are communicating with Robert and Gosia and relaying all this information, and it's very accurate, so forth, why has the Federation refused whatever assistance the Taygetans have offered? So let's hear what one of the Swaruu people has to say about this. In this case, it is Alinim.
The Urma. I have spoken to the Federation clearly, giving my statement of repudiation for their extreme permissiveness. Although they are doing things, many elements are still not clear to me. their reason for pushing Taygeta away. They say it is because we are too communicative and idealistic, and we could have compromised ongoing military operations. Still, I have been told that if we want to help, we are welcome. So our special forces in the following days could participate in surgical attacks on Earth. So the atmospheric operations of Taygeta fighter ships are authorized once again.
So that's a very interesting passage right there. The reference to the Federation's extreme permissiveness points to a deep disagreement over the extent to which the Federation will allow the deep state and ruling bloodline families to continue their destructive activities on Earth. In the meantime, the Taygetans are invited to mitigate the worst elements of the abuse happening on Earth. So this reference to extreme permissiveness is very, very telling, because it is suggesting that the Galactic Federation is allowing a lot of things to happen on Earth that are being conducted by the deep state, by the ruling bloodline families, to kind of keep Earth subjugated. And the Taygetans are kind of scratching their heads and looking at all this and saying, well, why is this being allowed? And that from the perspective of the Federation, they say that the Taygetans are too communicative and idealistic. So, you know, what does that mean? Well, I guess the Taygetans are relaying too much information, or they're relaying a lot of information to Earth humanity, and they are very idealistic. That rather than looking at things as they are, they're looking at things as they would like them to be. And I assume what that means is, from the perspective of the Federation, the Taygetans are kind of like too idealistic when it comes to humanity. They don't see humanity for what they are, which is kind of like narcissistic, psychopathic humans that are in the majority, and that manifest these nightmares, these collective nightmares, that the Taygetans are looking at humans and saying, well, you know, if the humans are being manipulated and controlled by the deep state, by the bloodline families for so long that, you know, they've become passive. That if you just took away, if you removed the deep state, if you removed the ruling bloodline families from power, then the humans would wake up. So why put them through all the suffering? And so I think this is the kind of debate going on here between the Taygetans and the Galactic Federation. Okay, so the reference to the Federation's extreme permissiveness points to a deep disagreement over the extent to which the Federation will allow the deep state and ruling bloodline families to continue their destructive activities on Earth. In the meantime, the Taygetans are invited to mitigate the worst elements of the abuse happening on Earth. So they can participate in the raids on dumbs and so forth to free children or captive humans that are being abused, or they can stop the off-world slave trades, stuff like that. But that as far as the deep state and the ruling bloodlines go, that they more or less, the Taygetans have to just allow the Federation, give them the kind of like permission or support them as the Federation allows these groups to continue and tries to get them to do things in a way that leads to the rest of humanity waking up, and then humanity themselves removing the deep state and the ruling bloodline families. In conclusion, it's clear from the information from Swaruu and her Taygetan colleagues, Earth is no longer under the control of regressive extraterrestrials that have been driven off. The Galactic Federation is now in control and is acting in a way that helps humanity to shrug off the control of ruling bloodline families and their deep state minions. This is something that only humanity can do, and the Federation will not directly intervene against the ruling families and the deep state. This decision not to intervene against the deep state ruling families is a major point of contention between the Taygetans and the leadership of the Galactic Federation of Worlds. This dispute is echoed in the more recent information from Dr. Andrea Martin and other galactic envoys that rank-and-file members of the Galactic Federation are unhappy with the decisions made by the Galactic Federation of Worlds leadership not to intervene against the deep state, and subsequent claims by Dr. Martin and others that the Galactic Federation of Worlds leadership has been infiltrated at its highest levels. So this is a very important point to consider here, because this is the crux of the debate happening right now between the Galactic Federation of Worlds leadership and other groups such as the Taygetans, the people associated with the Swaruu group, and also the rank and file of the Galactic Federation of Worlds that Dr. Martin and other galactic envoys say are expressing their extreme unhappiness with the policies of the Galactic Federation. And so it raises the question, well, has the Federation been infiltrated? Well, as I mentioned earlier, one of the ideas being expressed by the Taygetans is the extreme permissiveness of the Federation when it comes to the deep state doing the things that are doing these things that have led to much dissatisfaction amongst the Taygetans and the rank and file of the Galactic Federation. And so that leads to the idea, well, have they been infiltrated at the highest level? Now, Dr. Martin, she says that they have, and we did an interview where we talked about that. And now this has led to a lot of controversy. Alex Collier has, speaking on behalf of the Andromedans along with others, has said that such infiltration has not occurred. So Alex, I think, is kind of like supporting the view that I believe that the Federation is really doing what needs to be done in terms of helping humanity wake up that the deep state, that the ruling bloodline families are in control or have been in control for a long time, and humanity has to wake up themselves and remove the deep state and these ruling bloodline families from power. It can't be done by the Federation itself, because if the Federation were to do it, that would really kind of like cripple humanity in dealing with its own subconscious nightmares and so forth. Now, of course, Andrea Martin and the Taygetans are very unhappy with this extreme permissiveness, allowing the royal family, royal bloodline families and the deep state to continue to do all these things. But this, from the Federation perspective, it's what's needed to wake people up. So there's a big dispute here. And we can understand both sides. And, which side you choose to be on, I think that's up to you. But personally, I'm very interested in understanding how both sides think and where they stand on this dispute. Dr. Martin further claims that this kind of psychopathy and narcissistic behavior on Earth can be found extensively throughout the galaxy, and that current Earth civilizations would fit right in. So this is one of the things that really appealed to me when I did my interview with Andrea, because it kind of like, it's consistent with the Hermetic principle, as above, so below. So when it comes to our current 3D civilization, absolutely, as above, so below. So if we have a lot of psychopaths and narcissists that are running the show here on Earth, then of course up there you got a lot of psychopaths, a lot of narcissists running the show as far as 3D civilization is concerned. However, it's inconsistent with the Swaruu material that suggests that much of the galaxy operates in 5D, where civilizations have learned to control their subconscious nightmares to create peaceful societies that manifest beauty and abundance. So, what we're talking here is really kind of apples and oranges, that, what happens at the 3D level is what is going to be very different to what happens at the 5D level. At the 3D level, certainly, you have narcissists and psychopathy operating at all levels. But at the 5D level, that kind of narcissistic, psychopathic behavior is very much diluted, because otherwise you would have at the 5D these civilizations kind of like manifesting collective nightmares. So, we really, in a way, it's talking about different densities. Now, according to the Swaruu material, Earth and the solar system are kind of kept in this 3D cage, so that we learn to expunge our nightmares, so that way then we are ready to join the rest of 5D society, which is largely peaceful and harmonious. So I think it is a very interesting perspective. So the Swaruu material makes a lot of sense to me in terms of how 5D would work at a galactic level, and why Earth humanity is currently confined to 3D frequencies in our solar system until we learn to control our subconscious nightmares, lest we export those to otherwise peaceful worlds in the galaxy. Galactic Federation efforts in mentoring humanity so we can successfully transition to a wider 3D galactic society are laudable. I think I understand it makes a lot of sense why they are doing what they are doing. Though it's clear that some friendly extraterrestrial observers, the Taygetans, the Swaruu, the rank and file of the Galactic Federation, according to Dr. Andrea Martin, believe this mentorship can be improved by intervening more forcefully against the deep state and ruling bloodline families perpetuating the current oppressive global system. So, to me, it's like it's like being a parent. I'm a parent. I've got 2 children, and looking at your child in a rough kind of like neighborhood. If your child gets into a problem with one of the bullies, do you kind of go in and rescue him, or do you encourage him to deal with the bully in a way so that bully never bothers him again? So I think in a way this is kind of analogous to what is happening. I personally can see both sides of this debate. I think it's a very important debate. I think we need to understand it. And this is something that I look forward to talking about more in the future. So that's it as far as the video version of this article is concerned. For those of you that want to support my work, the best way is to join Patreon. I have a Patreon channel, which is just patreon.com/Michael Sala. Go there for $7 a month. You get to support me. I do 12 to 13 of these videos a month, and you get to have early access to those. You don't have to watch any ads, and also they are uncensored, because sometimes I do have to censor articles if we get into areas that YouTube does not like. So that's it. Thank you for watching, and aloha.
You have been listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Sala. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Sala. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.